Oh, yeah, coming to you live from WRUE in Tennessee. Well, it's the Scribbling Woman.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rue. I am the Scribbling Woman, and so are you. And that's why we're having this conversation. Here we talk about the writerly life that is unique to you, no matter your age, your season, or where you are in your creative journey, even if you don't think you have one yet. You are now an official Scribbly, so let's talk. Okay, let's start this time with a story. Some years ago, when I was at the height of my career as the author of books for tween girls, my editor changed jobs, as they so often do in the business, and a new editor came on board. It became apparent early on that she and I were not seeing eye to eye. For example, even though my former series had sold over 1 million copies, she thought maybe it was time for me to learn how to write. I had a couple of conversations about perhaps I should replace all my saids with "she exhorted," "she exclaimed," "she beamed," when no one can actually beam a word. She was determined that I was going to cut the story in half and get it down to 20,000 words. And she was very afraid that for certain things I was doing, she was going to get her hands slapped by librarians. At one point, when I was discussing some of this with her, she said, "I can't believe you've never been edited before." Okay. I tried really hard. I really did, to work with this person, to maybe see where she might be coming from. I tried cutting things out and went, not working for me. I tried replacing my saids and thought, this sounds like an old Nancy Drew novel. Finally, one day, we had a conversation in which she really tipped me over the edge. And I said, you know what? I can't talk about this right now. And I am ashamed to admit, I threw my phone across the desk. Well, not long after that, I decided maybe I should confide in my agent. Lee Huff was not only a wonderful man, he was an incredible agent. He was a friend, he was a brother, and most of all, he believed in what it was that I was doing. We were a team. So I confided in him about what was happening with evil editor lady. There was a silence, and then he said, "I don't know why you feel like you have to continue to try to work this out, because I am not hearing any joy in your voice." He said, "All I have to do is make a phone call, and she's out of your writerly life." I said, "Go for it, Lee." By the end of the day, the publisher had called me and said, "Why didn't you say something sooner? We're bringing someone else in to work with your books." By the end of the week, that lady no longer had a job. Apparently, I wasn't the only one. The point is, it took me some time for my joy, my delight in playing with my new characters in their new scenarios to return. Because joy sapping can happen without our even being consciously aware of what's going on. It kind of creeps up like an unhealthy habit. We don't know it's there until, okay, let's see if your joy has been sapped or it's seeping away even as we speak. Do you remember Jeff Foxworthy? If you have more than one large household appliance on your front porch, you just might be a redneck. Jeff could get away with it because A, he was a self-proclaimed redneck, and B, he spoke with deep affection for his fellow redneckians. And that's how I'm speaking today, because I have been joy sapped in my day, and because I love my fellow scribblies whose joy quotient is flatlining. Maybe that's you. So, are you up for a little non-scientific self-assessment? Check out how many of these things apply to you in some way or have in the past. If scrubbing baseboards sounds like a better time than finishing your first draft, you might be joy sapped. If you have ever thrown a significant object, such as a cell phone, a vacuum cleaner, or a fax machine, in writing frustration, you might be joy-sapped. If you want to punch your protagonist in the face several times, you might be joy-sapped. If you have used the term hot mess in a review of somebody else's published work, you might be joy-sapped. If you wish with all of your being that you would experience an attack of appendicitis so you'd have an excuse not to write, you might be joy-sapped. Now, how does that happen to us? I mean, we have these creative ideas. We clearly possess a gift for weaving them into stories and vivid nonfiction. We have a vision of reaching readers or having an impact on people's lives. That all springs from a passion, which is a product of joy. So why does it flatline? Well, there are as many reasons as there are scribbling women. I'm just going to name 5 that I often see arising like specters before my fellow scribblies. Number 1, the current publishing climate. More and more people seem to be writing, yet the chances of being traditionally published seem to be diminishing, and the competition is becoming more and more fierce. Few writers make a living at their craft. So how can we maintain joy in the pursuit when the effort seems absolutely pointless? Number 2, harsh criticism. Even if it's padded by concern, although concern is seldom at its root, let me just say. Social media gives people a platform for expressing opinions, and its impersonal nature gives them permission to get downright ugly. Jealousy, blocked creativity of their own, and their inherent joylessness as a person make for some pretty heartbreaking feedback. The third is isolation. When we completely go it alone, inner critic has plenty of space to throw its false weight around. Without encouragement from and interactions with kindred spirits, loneliness gives way to self-deprecation. That cuts us off from our creative selves. Get scared. There is no joy to be found in fear. Fourthly, bohos from the past that haunt us. You remember the bohos, big old hairy obstacles. Even when we're supported in the present, we can be tortured by the old voices of pinched English teachers and constipated contest judges and parents who said we'd be homeless if we pinned our hopes on a writerly career. So left to their own devices, the bohos can snatch our joy and run off with it like muggers on the streets of New York City. And finally, guilt. That we're not making money, that we aren't doing something worthy, that we can't both write a novel or a memoir and keep the cobwebs out of the corners. And we all know what happens when our joy flatlines for whatever reason. We can't get into the zone. Instead, we're looking at the clock or counting how many words we've written. We question every word, every image, every comma. Maybe we can't even remember what dreams brought us to the page in the first place. We think our creativity is dying. We don't know how to revive it. In this series of episodes, we're going to explore ways to return to the delight that nudged us to write to begin with. And we're going to do it playfully, with delight and a certain innocence. So show up in your play clothes. In the meantime, I'm going to offer immediate CPR in case you need emergency measures to keep you from completely walking away from your writerly life. Measure number 1. So get out the panels, the pads, whatever. If you're avoiding writing altogether and alphabetizing your spices instead, then organize the materials for your current pursuit. The one that's joy-sapped. Put stuff in colored folders, tidy the pile, reconfigure the Word documents. Do something that is as mindless as scrubbing the grout with a toothbrush. Just let it be writing related. If you're so frustrated you want to flush your jump drive down the toilet, don't do it. You'll need a plumber. Instead, do something physical. Make a mad walk. Pound clay. Clean out your closet with a vengeance. You're not doing it to avoid writing, but to get those frustrations out of your physical system. That's where they live. You want to smack your characters, Take them out for coffee or on a hike or to a picnic in the middle of the living room floor, and then let them tell you why they're behaving as they are, getting on your last nerve. If you're tempted to brutally diss other people's work, write a letter, which you will never send, to whatever's really bothering you. If you're looking for a valid excuse not to write, as in you'd rather have an appendectomy right now, set it all aside for a day or two and give yourself the same kind of self-care that you receive in a hospital. Grant yourself permission to rest and detox and breathe. In our next 7 episodes, we'll look at things like creating your playground, learning the way kids do, finding playmates, setting up play dates, getting some of it on you like you're playing in the mud, and playing the what if game like you never have before. Always know that every week you'll also find a blog post that gives you a deeper chance to apply what we talk about in the episode. And you can find that at www.nancyrue.com/blog. If you subscribe to the blog, you'll have access to a free download that takes you even further along the path. Until next time, Scribblies, I want you to scribble on.